When I was 10 years old, my great-grandfather passed away. While he was alive, he detested us kids playing on his bed. He had one good eye, and even that wasn't particularly strong. When he died, the family returned to the house he had lived in. I recall mentioning to my mother that I was feeling sleepy. My aunt suggested I lie down in Papa's old bed and take a nap. His bed was exactly as he had left it, with neatly tucked-in blankets and two fluffy, inviting pillows. Eagerly, I jumped into the bed, unwittingly undoing all his meticulous work. I was there for just a moment before the bed began shaking vigorously. Startled, I looked up, and there stood Papa.
Boy, didn't I tell you to stop lying in my bed?
I don't recall if my feet touched the floor, but suddenly, I found myself screaming and running down the hallway with Papa close behind. And that's a true story. Even in my 50s, I remember it as if it happened just yesterday. I'm not sure what category this would fall under, but it was definitely the strangest experience I've had in years. I worked the night shift at a warehouse. I won't specify which one, as it's not crucial to the story. On this particular night, I was heading home around 3 a.m. My house is located in the hills, about half a mile from the main road. As I made my way up the road, which transitions from a nice, smooth surface to dirt halfway, I immediately felt eyes watching me. Usually, I wouldn't be bothered, as it's common to spot wildlife observing me during my journey up the road. However, as I reached my usual parking spot, I retrieved the pocket knife I keep in the glove box and stepped out of my vehicle. My attention was drawn to a dark patch of woods on the other side of the road. Something inside me urged me to look in that direction, and I calmly raised my knife, saying, "I know you're there." As soon as those words left my lips, the world went eerily quiet. This was particularly strange, considering there was a waterfall about 500 to 600 feet away from me, and I could always hear it when coming home. Even the waterfall fell silent. This bizarre quietness persisted for about 10 seconds before the sounds returned, and I heard something running away from me. Keeping my knife by my side, I walked to the house, opting not to run, as it felt like a bad idea. Upon entering, I noticed that the dogs that usually greeted me were nowhere in sight. They were both in the living room, gazing out the window in the same direction from which I had felt the unseen presence. I didn't mention anything to my fiancée, as she was asleep and didn't share my belief in the paranormal. My belief stems from my Mapuche heritage, South American Indian tribe, and I grew up hearing stories from my dad about Native American legends, including Wendigos, skinwalkers, and other spirit creatures. Since that night, I've never felt that same presence. I have no idea what it could have been, but I'm certain it wasn't deer, which I typically encounter around my home. I used to live in an old house from about age 7 to 10, so this happened a while ago. When my family, mom and twin sisters, both 4 at the time, moved in, there was something kind of off about it. There was always this sense of dread, the type that makes you feel like you're being watched. However, the creepiest part of the house was this small closet underneath our stairs, going down to the basement, where my sisters and I slept. In the 4 years of living there, none of us ever went into it because of how creepy it was, but that's beside the point. The first couple of incidents that happened weren't really that big, just things like lights turning on when you thought you turned them off, and doors doing the same thing. But then, the more messed up stuff started happening. Most nights when I tried to sleep, I always had this sense that someone was watching me in the pitch black, and some nights I couldn't even move. One night, when I was about 8, I couldn't sleep at all. I tried to sleep in my mom's bed. I lay awake until about 2 in the morning until I started to get the feeling someone was watching me, and I couldn't move. That was until I heard my mom's music box start playing, then I was totally scared. When I tried to wake my mom up, it stopped. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Nothing really happened after that, except that my sisters slowly stopped sleeping in our room and started sleeping on the upstairs couch because we were so scared. Eventually, my mom had to sell the house. We couldn't afford it anymore. On the last night that we were there, one of my sisters and I decided that we were going to go into the closet and look behind the corner just to see what was there. Right as we were going around it, the door slammed shut. We screamed, ran to the door, pushing each other out of the way. When we went to tell our family, they didn't believe us. Years later, I learned that the old man who built the house and lived in it also died in it, too. LOL. For years in the area where I live, there have been sightings of a monkey-like creature that is 4 feet tall and probably 300 pounds. People have described it as being anatomically built like a gorilla but having ears like a bat or cat. They have also said that it has been managed. The first sighting was in 1983 at a diner in town. It was 8 p.m., and the manager was closing up the restaurant. He heard banging at the front window and went to see what was going on. Then he called the police. When the police arrived, they fired a gun to scare it off. The creature then ran into the woods and wasn't seen again until 1991, in which the most known incident occurred on December 16, 1991. Police were called around 7:30 a.m.
I got a call from a frightened woman early morning on Monday. She told me there was some kind of monkey out here attacking people, so I went out to see. When I got there, I saw a mangled mess of a body lying in the road. She was locked in her car safely. The body was of a 17-year-old boy who had been torn apart. His upper lip and nose were gone from his face. Both hands and both feet were gone from his limbs as well.
Recounted Sheriff Mike Doyle of Oakland. This was my most recent terrifying nightmare. I've had many, but this one was really different from the rest. So, for some backstory, when I was a little kid, I lived in Miami. From the stories I've heard, the neighborhood I lived in was considered the hood. When I was about 5 years old, we left. Now, into the dream, or should I say nightmare. My parents decided that we were going to visit our old house in that Miami neighborhood. When we got there, we noticed it was blocked from the rest of the city, with a tall metal gate surrounding the entire neighborhood. The gate didn't have an opening, instead, it led to a small hallway. For some reason, a kid from my current school was now there, waiting at the gate with me and my family. So, we got inside the neighborhood, and it was run down and broken. Fast forward a few hours into the dream, my family and friends found my childhood house and decided to check it out. My brother went into his room, my parents in theirs, and my friend, my sister, and I were chilling in the living room. We were standing there for a few minutes when my little sister said something silly to my friend, something a 5-year-old would say. I can't really remember. He got angry and turned to me, saying he was going to hit her. He then proceeded to go into another room to get a golf club. I tried calming him down and calling my parents, but no one listened. To protect my sister, I took like 3 hits with the club. After a few more hits, he picked up my sister and bit her on the neck. I tackled him to the ground, still with my sister in his jaws. Blood everywhere. I tried to punch him, but it didn't do anything, but I kept trying. A few more seconds, and I started jabbing a stick into his rib cage, but nothing was working. The cops came and took him away. The look in his eyes was unforgettable. I've never seen so much hate in someone's eyes. We stayed in that house for years. One day, I was watching the news on the TV that just appeared in the house. It said that my friend went crazy in prison, staying in his cell for days, never touching light, and that he carved a smile into his face. At the end of the broadcast, It said that he went missing from his cell a few days ago. I broke down because I knew he was coming for me. I grabbed a knife and tried to kill myself. Before I got the chance, I looked behind me. And there he was. Bleached white skin, wearing all black, and with a bloody smile on his face. He aggressively yelled, "Suicide!" and slit my throat. That was one of the most vivid nightmares I've ever had. It was trippy seeing that same friend at school the next day. The closest thing I could find to the look in his eyes in that nightmare was a picture of Jeff the killer. But you probably won't find it.